Hey guys, Micah from blackbearcustomkydex. I have a video for you today on, I think it's I think it's technically 5 separate little mini projects that I've got for uh, for Ron down in Pennsylvania. And Ron has been a frequent repeat customer for about a year and a half now. So Ron, I really appreciate your business, brother. Thank you so much for always having cool projects for me and for continuing to come back for more. So we're going to start with the simplest and kind of increase up to what I think is one of the coolest little EDC combo rigs I've done or seen. So first things first, he sent me this. I guess I think it must be 9 inches, about 9-inch long ceramic rod, and he asked if I could just make a 3-inch handle for it. He didn't really specify. Excuse me. He didn't really specify anything for the design. So what I decided to do was put some grooves in it that would just help you get a really positive grip, including one kind of right there. You can obviously grip it right against the rod, but essentially it's just giving you a better hold of the rod. Honestly, to me it feels pretty comfortable just about any orientation in the hand, but I really do like having those little grooves there. Of course, it's got the same beveled edge and nice hand polished, hand sanded finish that you're used to with all my knives, or all my sheaths rather. But that Kydex is on there gripping this rod really securely, so if you really exert, you could probably separate them, but it would be very hard to do. And you can see it's lined right up with the butt of that rod, so this would be a nice little convenient thing if you want to ever sharpen in the field. He said not to attach to anything, it's just going to get thrown in his pack, so there you are, my friend. Alright, so that's piece 1. Piece 2, excuse me guys, he did not send. I own a SOG Seal Pup Elite, and he wanted to get a sheath for his son who owns the same knife and who's shipping off to Florida for some kind of training soon. I don't know what branch he's in, or maybe it's police kind of thing, or who knows, but anyway, his son is getting this guy. It's in black basket weave. He asked for it to be quote molly or belt. So what I'm doing, I don't think I charged him for it, but I mean, if I did, I did. If I didn't, then he's getting it anyway. I don't know where it is. I set one out. Guess I gotta grab another one. Currently, it has one large molly lock on it, which should be plenty because it goes through 3 rows of molly, so that'll be a very stable platform. But I'm also going to send a tech lock. You can see my typical odd spacings for the eyelets will allow you to carry with your tech lock, so that your knife can be vertical, horizontal, or canted like so for a comfortable cross draw. So I'm going to send all this to you. You can just swap out, you can use the hardware that's already going through this molly lock and just put it through the tech lock instead. So that'll be that. As far as the fit on this thing goes, it's nice. It's got a really modest little click. One thing I actually was very surprised by, using .093 basket weave on this particular knife was extremely difficult to get retention on it. I've typically found that this knife was one of the easiest ones I've ever worked with for retention, but and I've done one in regular, in 080 at basket weave, so something about basket weave and 093 just made this a real fight for me to get it to work. But I've got solid retention on it. I'd say it's a slightly more difficult draw than is ideal, but not knowing exactly what he's using it for, if he's taking it to some training thing, ostensibly he's going to be using it in the field, whatever he's doing after that. So I just wanted to make sure that it had plenty of retention for getting down in the muck and doing some hard training. So anyway, you don't have to worry about that falling out on you. No rattle, no play, and that's really in there secure. So at the same time, it's not that hard to draw one-handed. You just got to make sure that when you do draw it, you get that, there's almost like a second click. Listen to it. So that's click 1, click 2. On the second click, it's free and clear to come out. So, SOG Seal Pup Elite. Really love this knife. Alright, the next one is a Eskabar / ESEE Eskabar, and I think it's also the BK11. I'm not totally clear on the series and all that good stuff, but Ron, with all of his K-Bar series knives, has these knife connection scales on them. I really love the scales. They're just excellent. This is obviously very reminiscent of an ESEE Zula, so the collaboration between ESEE and K-Bar, you can definitely see some influences from both sides of that fence. And surprisingly, ESEE Orange is a really bad match to like the Kydex Orange, Hunter Orange color, but the Knife Connection Scales Orange is an excellent match. It doesn't really show up too well on camera. This seems like it's way brighter, but it's really not. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it looks okay. Anyway, I thought it was going to be really bad when I first opened the box and saw the orange scales. I was like, oh man, here we go. But I'm pleasantly surprised. This black and orange micarta, actually this might be G10. I seriously cannot tell the difference. It feels like micarta, but maybe it's just G10. Anyway, that matches so well against that orange and black Cryptek, so really happy with that. This one he's going to be wearing as a necker. He had sent a lanyard in the box, and Ron, I'm sorry brother, I don't have it attached, partly because I wasn't really sure how you wanted me to do it. When I didn't look at the lanyard first, so when I built this, I put 2 eyelets at the tip of the sheath because I like it to be just a little bit wider. It hangs a little more sturdy, a little more stable, instead of having the tendency to swing like that, as you know, it's less of a rotation on the swing. So I thought at first that I was going to be tying the lanyard. Then I noticed this guy in the box, and one end is a loop, the other end, excuse me, is a really nice snake knot, forming some kind of like actual, you can actually like loosen the cord up and pull it back through it, so it's like a slip knot, snake knot. I don't really know what's going on there. And even I wasn't really sure what you wanted me to do with this, so I didn't do it. I didn't tie this on. I'm going to let you do that so that it can be how you want it to be. And yeah, so that's that. The draw on this thing, ballistic one-handed draw, and it has an Exotac fire rod attached, so this will be a really nice little necker to carry around. Alright, moving to the last knife. We have one more project after this one, but the last knife in the bunch is an SE3, also with these nice black and orange. I'm gonna say micarta. It feels more. See, G10 almost, you know, it's a type of plastic, and I can feel the plastic. Micarta almost feels more like a ceramic or something to me, and that's what this feels like. It's like cold to the touch right now. Anyway, I'm probably totally wrong, but if anybody has insight down there, especially if you're Ron because you bought the sucker, let me know. So anyway, he asked if I could do an SE3 sheath, same color scheme on the Kydex, an Exotac fire rod attached, and also one Tigris watertight container. So the container is disproportionately large to the sheath, but when you're carrying a given set of gear, the functionality is far more important. So I know it looks like a little bit of an eyesore sticking up here on the top, but that was kind of the best place to put it. It allowed me to very comfortably stow the fire rod where I normally would. And then this guy, I mean, the only other real option would have been putting it on the face of the sheath, but I opted against that because this is also carried on one large molly lock per Ron's request. So it should be pretty stable, but I didn't want the standoff from the pack to be, I mean, that would increase it another 1.5 inches or so. which is just a lot of it's a lot of profile to be carrying around on a pack. So in any event, the retention on this is excellent. I would say this is absolutely perfect retention. There's no rattle, no play, and totally ballistic one-handed draw. Really love how this thing came out. Ron, I did put some shock cord on this thing for you, so it's in there pretty secure, but this is an extremely smooth surface, and the inside of the Kydex is very smooth, so it does move quite easily. So just in case, we got some shock cord on there. You can obviously cut that off if you don't want it, and obviously you've got that shock cord on your fire rod as per usual. So there we go, that's the SE3. Alright, so the last piece of this order is a combo rig. Some of you probably already saw it on Instagram today. It didn't get quite as much love as I thought it would, and I totally mislabeled the flashlight. I totally called it a power tack. It's a through night. I feel like an idiot. I'll go back and edit that at some point here. But so I've done a few of these sheaths now, specifically combo for Leatherman Skeletal and the Leatherman bit kit and extender. I think this is the 4th or 5th one that I've done for that specific combination, and I've never done a bit kit outside of doing it with the skeletal. So I think it was just the very first one that I did. Somebody saw that and decided they wanted the same combo, and it's just kind of kept going like that. So Ron asked for that combo combined with his through night flashlight to ride on 2 small molly locks. Excuse me, folks. So this was a little bit of a tricky one, largely because of the having to get the proper spacing for mollies, and with all of the things on here, trying not to let it get super wide, because that's honestly, that's the tendency if you have a lot of stuff packed into one little rig. But I think I kept it as low profile as possible. You can see that bit kit extender is over here behind the flashlight. Obviously the flashlight, the bits, and the skeletal itself. I'm going to give you a nice close-up look at it. Now if you've watched the other videos that I did with the bit kits, you'll notice that this one's a little bit different in that I actually did it. So the other ones I did taco style wrapping from the side. This one I decided, not only because it made it a little more versatile in terms of the mounting to get stuff on both sides of it, have this be the centerpiece, but also for practicality reasons, I discovered that doing taco style folding up from the bottom is actually just an all-around better design for these things. So I feel really bad that it never dawned on me before, and there are 3 or 4 other people out there that have my bit kit holders that have an inferior version of it. So part of the challenge with these things is the bits can slide sideways in their little holders. I'll show you. So the bits can slide a little bit sideways. So if you put that sucker in with even just one bit, you know, off-centered, it can kind of chatter on the way in, scrape up the walls of the Kydex. It's a real pain in the butt, and it just makes it fit a little less ideally. It makes it more difficult to sheath it, more difficult to redraw it, etc., etc. It's a problem. So I actually discovered a way of molding it so that you get a nice flat surface with plenty of clearance for these. And so now the result is, even if they're a little bit off, they can't be a lot off. You still have to make sure they're, you know, kind of no hands outside the roller coaster cart scenario to put that sucker back in the tunnel. But once they are at least within that profile, they draw very smoothly, they resheath very smoothly, and as far as having them like lock into place or something, you don't have to worry about it too much because the Kydex is compressing just that very center, so it gives you a nice smooth surface to push against, or rather the Kydex is pushing mostly against the center of this, as well as the center here where you see the word Leatherman. So it's smooth surfaces on smooth surfaces, but with pressure pinching, so it really holds it well. These guys are back to back. You can put them in, you can rotate this 180 and have the smooth side facing outward. However, it's definitely a tighter fit like that because, yeah, now I've got it wedged in there. Hold on just 1 second. Now I've gone and done it. Oh boy. There we go. So yeah, the back of it is wider than the front, obviously by necessity, and you can see that this is not a perfectly square chamber. It is a trapezoid or a rhombus. Man, I'm kind of forgetting all my shapes. So I think that's a rhombus. Like it's, whatever. It's not square, so the wider part should fit into the wider part. The square peg goes in the square hole, etc. So it fits really nicely, gives you good retention, and is much smoother than my previous bit kit designs. So if you do order something like a bit kit for Leatherman stuff, it's going to look something like this. That's just the design that makes the most sense. It's what I'm going to go with from here forward. As far as the flashlight, actually let's talk about the rest of the bit kit. This extender piece here, it's basically just a ferro rod loop. It's just a simple loop, and the retention on it is nice. It's very smooth, but it's sufficient to hold your rod in there. It doesn't rattle, doesn't move around unless you physically move it. Then we got the light. I did not expect that to happen. The light has a pretty smooth draw as well, and sort of the little trick I gave it to make it lock into place was once I got a really smooth fit for the shaft, for the majority of the shaft, you can see this ring up here right below the emitter is actually a little bit wider than the rest of the shaft. So what I did was I just heated the very top and molded it so that you could push it down in. So once you get it to here, you just kind of seat it down in there. It's very smooth, but you can feel the pressure increase as you get it down there. It'll bottom out, and that's that. It's locked into place. So as far as drawing it goes, what I would do is put my middle finger up under there, maybe a thumb on top of the bits, and something like that. Once you have that top piece, that widest part of the shaft up, it draws very, very smoothly. So it's quite a nice little holder there. And then of course we have the skeletal over here. Ron's does have the pocket clip on it, but the pocket clip is fine. I know I've naysayed it in the past. The pocket clip is fine if it's a single layer sheath. If you're doing double layer, I highly recommend you get rid of the clip. You can see it doesn't do any weird bending and standing off like this. It just is what it is. You don't really need, with the skeletal, you don't need that scallop like I do on my Leatherman waves. I just filmed this sheath, so maybe you guys have seen it already, but you can see that scallop. It's really a finger push just to give you more room to get that tool out of there. But that's part of the ergos of the wave, that I feel that that's a necessary feature. Whereas with the skeletal, it's just a different shaped tool, so you only have to release it a little bit before it becomes extremely easy to draw. This is a quad directional, I'm not sure what you'd call it, quadridirectional sheath, meaning that you can have the pocket clip facing out on the front. You can have it facing back toward the pack. It's actually mounting on a pack because it's molly locks. And then of course you can go from the bottom either direction as well. So alright, my personal preference would be to have the pocket clip hidden behind it, so essentially having Leatherman Skeletal X CX facing outward as you're looking at the face of the sheath. The only other feature really to show you on these is the molly locks themselves. You can see that they are skewed. They are off-centered. They're not quite perfect. Part of the reason is because the sheath has a little bit more dynamic movement than I thought it would. And the reason is because with moving everything toward the center, having it not be a really sprawled out wide sheath, it means that it's going to be thicker front to back. And the thicker it is, the longer the Chicago screws have to be, and the longer the Chicago screws are, the less stable it is, I guess you could say. It's a really sturdy sheath. I'm not calling it, shoddy or anything, but with them being so long, you can kind of rotate things. I mean, it doesn't just happen on its own. Even shaking it violently, it's not just going to happen, but with some muscle, you can kind of click things a little bit back and forth. It is what it is. It's almost unnoticeable as far as the visual difference when you rock it. It literally moves a millimeter, maybe. As far as the mollies go, the situation we ran into was this is the lowest profile I could get it, and then this is the highest profile I could get it on this side, just based on the spacers, the size of spacers, the length of hardware, and how unstable or how much movement there is when you extend things outward too far. So you can see that there's just more stuff stacked up on this side, and including these two screws which kind of get in the way. So how I ended up having to do this was these rows right here are exactly 2 inches apart. Molly webbing is based on 1.5 inch increments. So these, if I just put the molly locks through here, it would look the best. It would be nice and symmetrical. However, it wouldn't actually work because it would be too wide to fit into that 1.5 inch gap in the mollies. Likewise, it would be too narrow to fit into the 3 inch gap. So you can see 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, etc. That is the interval you have to go by for spacing between your molly locks to make it work with actual molly webbing. So I did try this out on a pack today just to make sure that it's going to work. So it'll be fine, I promise. I know it looks a little bit funky, but I wanted to call attention to it and just let you know right up front that it does work. So you just open those suckers up, slide them in, and you'll have no problem getting those closed and locked in on your molly webbing. It does actually support the weight better than I expected to. These will go through 2 rows of molly, and they'll be in the consecutive loops. So this actually came out pretty nice, and in spite of the lopsidedness of the mollies, they fit just fine and retain and hold your sheath in place very, very well. So anyway, that's what I got for you guys. So you know the drill. If you liked all these sheaths, if you liked this video, hit that like button. If you like the channel, I ask you to subscribe to it. Definitely comment down below. I would love your thoughts on all of this gear, especially this rig. And if you've followed my channel for very long and seen the other bit kits, I would love your opinion on the difference between this new bit kit design and the older design where it was a taco fold from the side and with an exposed open bottom and all that good stuff. So it was fine. It worked okay, but I think this is really, truly superior. So, alright guys, I got a split. I really appreciate you tuning in. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and stick around for the next one. God bless.